Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Headed into our final segment of the day, looking at the upcoming weekend storylines. I am most interested in the college basketball games on Saturday. We do additionally have some mid-major conference tournaments starting as well that could be very important for the selection process for March Madness as we get closer and closer to Selection Sunday. I believe we're now at a week from Sunday is Selection Sunday for the March Madness tournament. So very exciting stuff that I just love March Madness. Yeah, it's March 17th. So we are getting closer and closer, which is just so fun to think about. March Madness and even these conference tournaments that we are on the brink of are some of the best moments, I feel like, in sports in America. So we have a bunch of those mid-major tournaments as well, but we have three crucial matchups between ranked teams this weekend. First off, Kansas versus Houston. This is Houston's chance to win the Big 12 regular season title outright in their first season in the conference. They just moved to it this year, and I've been so impressed by how Kelvin Sampson and this team has been able to adapt to a ramped up regular season setting. And maybe I overrate the regular season a little bit, but I just feel like they've been able to be so much more battle tested this season than they have in years past. And I do think that their number one overall ranking right now is absolutely fair. The way that Jamal Shed has been such a leader for them defensively. I think that the way that LJ Cryer, who transferred last season, he was at Baylor, they just have put together a really tremendous team and have been very much war tested this year and have a chance to capitalize on it this Saturday. We still have these conference tournaments to go, of course, so there are chances for the seedings to change, but the fact that they are currently number one, a lot of people will argue that Purdue has the best body of work. But as it currently stands, Houston has the most quad 1 and quad 2 wins in the country. So this would be a huge statement for them, where you also have Kansas. You're playing on the road here in Houston. This is a tough game that Kansas is going to have to try and steal, but would also be a huge statement coming off of a tough loss to Baylor last week, where we still have doubts about this Kansas team. Their depth still isn't really there. And now you have Kevin McCullough back, which is a step in the right direction for them. But it also this is going to be a very in-the-mud game, I feel like, with the defense that Houston plays, with how Kansas is going to approach this. I don't think that it's going to be bombs away from three. I think it's going to be scrappy, and I think it's going to turn out to be, at least if you like some defense as well in this era of all-time offense, I think this is going to be a really good game. We also have Kentucky and Tennessee, which in terms of pace and play is going to be very much on the other end of the scale, where it's going to be some high-flying offenses. That's what both of these teams have been all season. Tennessee's a little bit more complete on the defensive side of the ball. I think when they really started turning their season into this top-tier contender, call them a second tier maybe, under the top three teams in Houston, UConn, but I also wouldn't put Purdue as a top-tier contender either. But they're going to be the top three seeded one seeds, and then there's still that sort of next fight for who is going to be the final one seed. That is the area that Tennessee is currently in, but the way that they were able to turn around their season, I think, was with more energy on the defensive side of the ball. I think senior Dalton Knecht has been a big part of that. He is one of the favorites to win SEC Player of the Year. He is a very interesting draft prospect for the NBA and the way that this Tennessee team is playing, they're going to be tested by this Kentucky team, because just based off of the offense that the Wildcats play, they really can compete with just about anyone, because when they get going, they really get going. Their lineup in terms of rotations has been so interesting to me this year, because they, of course, are led by Rob Dillingham, who is probably my favorite freshman in college basketball this season. But the way that they've had all of these different talented young players step up sort of sporadically in each of these games, it's so hard to evaluate from a draft perspective who the guys are going to be. I don't expect them all to be back on Kentucky next year, whether it's the draft or I think there's a good chance we could see some transfers. But fact of the matter is this team can get buckets, and Tennessee is going to have a test ahead of them where they look to lock down the SEC outright. We also have the classic game, UNC versus Duke. UNC came out on top of this matchup a few weekends ago, and then that's when we started to see them staggering a little bit more. Followed that game up with a couple of losses. There was the Georgia Tech loss, and then it was either that next game or the game afterwards where they dropped as well. They lost to Clemson right after, and I just think that they're a team that has a very high ceiling in the tournament this year. Their defense can be really elite when they are really locked in on that side. Duke, since that game against UNC early February it was, have had freshman Jared McCain really ramping up his play. So we will see this game now taking place in Duke. You have a hungry Duke team playing off against a UNC team. This is a top 10 matchup. Obviously, all of the history that goes behind this series, now we have it, the new iteration with the new coaches, with Hubert Davis and with Cryer on the other side. So, Shire, I should say, on the other side. But anytime you get these two programs matching up, it is going to be a very heavily weighted game. But moving on to the NBA and some of these biggest storylines, the Celtics now have lost 2 straight games for the first time since November. They have a primetime matchup against the Phoenix Suns on Saturday night. This is going to be a big moment for them, I think, to get themselves right. This is on the road in Phoenix. The Cavs loss, I think, as much as blowing a 20-point lead in a lot of senses is unacceptable, I think that sort of some of the mentality of it, where they had just blown out the Warriors by over 50 points in their previous game, up by 20 in the fourth quarter, they big time took their foot off of the gas. They lose this close game to the Nuggets. Now we're hearing all of this buzz about the mistrust of the Celtics going forwards, why they can't win the finals. This would be a big time moment for Tatum, who most recently, when he played Kevin Durant in the playoffs, played tremendously, and this Celtics team to sort of reaffirm themselves. Yes, we lost last game, but it was to the Denver Nuggets. We have things that we need to get better in, but we are still the favorites in the Eastern Conference, whereas the Suns here they've had their ups and downs. I mean, they were just able to hold off Toronto last night, but they've had a little bit of an up and down month. They are 2-2 since the beginning of March. They beat the Denver Nuggets on Tuesday night, but that also included them blowing a fourth quarter lead. Now, they did so without Devin Booker. He's missed 3 straight games for them, but this is also a big time spot for the Suns to come out and be able to compete with the best of them. I at least personally came away with their game on Tuesday still with a little bit of questions about them, and we're not sure what the injury status is going to be for Devin Booker just yet, so maybe we won't even get the full-blown answers of what does this team look like fully healthy in the playoffs. But I also do think that this is another spot where Brad Beal especially, I think he has a lot to prove. Now, the spotlight isn't necessarily on him because he's just the third best player on his team, but he is sneakily one of the players in the NBA this year with the most to gain, because so much of his career was spent on the Wizards where they weren't really achieving much at all. And then finally, when he was having his best years, it was on a non-playoff team, but he was able to lead the league in scoring. So he has that going for him, but in terms of overall team success and impact on winning, that's still to be seen from him a little bit. And again, we'll see what the injury update is on Devin Booker as this weekend approaches and as that matchup approaches, but is a very interesting matchup in my eyes. The last two games, really, that I have flagged are the Bucks versus the Clippers and the Timberwolves versus the Lakers on Sunday. Bucks-Clippers is earlier in the day. This is one where the Bucks, we've seen them take a lot of strides in the right direction since the All-Star break with the defense that they've been playing, but a lot of those defensive matchups were coming to the likes of the Charlotte Hornets, the Chicago Bulls, the Philadelphia 76ers, who have really been struggling as of late. Now they go into a game against the Warriors the other night, and they get ran up on the defensive side of the ball, allowing the Warriors to be explosive on offense. This is another chance for them to redeem themselves and a test for us to see whether or not that defense is legitimate against top tier competition. And then the Timberwolves and the Lakers, I think that this is a big time look at the Timberwolves here, where now one of their, call it a superpower, but one of their advantages of this season up to this point is having immense size, being able to run the two big lineup with Karl-Anthony Towns and with Rudy Gobert, bringing Naz Reid off of the bench. This is going to be an example of going up against another team that is also pretty significant in some of the size of their players and physical, and be able to see how that affects the game that the Timberwolves are able to play, because this could very well be their first round matchup as they sit at the 1 seed and the Lakers are in the play-in tournament. So should be a great weekend of hoops. I think that from college basketball to the NBA, there are a lot of things to look forward to this weekend, but that is all we have time for today. Thank you very much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you to the GSMC Sports Network for allowing us to host this show. Just a reminder to like and follow wherever you may be keeping up with us, and we will see you on Monday at 2 o'clock. Have a great weekend, and we will see you then. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.